Fletcher. Now sit back and prepare to be entertained.
Welcome back to the Dripping Bucket with your usual hosts, her and me. And today we are joined by the fantastic J.D. Evans, author of the Mage's Wheel series. Did I get that right? Mages of the Wheel series. I fucked it up even though it's like right in front of me. So bad.
Reading words is hard. That's not what we do here.
We don't do words. And author of Reign and Ruin, a SPFBO finalist. Which year was that? Was that
Barely.
6?
7.
God,
7.
They're a blur.
Yep.
So, thank you for joining
kick
us.
my ass, but like, if anyone's gonna do it,
just barely. I mean, like, I kind of like tripped. I tripped over the over the finish line.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, you guys. I'm excited to chat with you again.
Yeah. As you can tell, SPFBO's on our minds. We're all going through a little bit of PTSD with Cycle 9 finishing. It felt inevitable that I would drag you into this as well. Because I want you with me at all times. You give me a sense of peace.
Have you guys interviewed anybody from this year?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, we did Clayton and we did
Connor.
And I think that's it, I guess. We should try to round up those poor miscreants now that they're
give them time to get over time to get over the PTSD, and then
they can have some perspective of what they went through and then talk about it with us.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I should have tried to at least think of something to talk to you about. But what are you working on these days? Like, how have you survived in the aftermath of?
I right at the
nervous laughter.
SPFBO was the end of like a 2-year stretch of intensity for me. So I had a second kid, and I'm consistently pump out NICU babies, so it's always a really exciting intro into parenthood. And
fun.
So we had the second one, and then we were moving, and COVID had just happened. Like, it was just a lot of intensity. And so I finally published another book last summer. And so I'm working on the next installment in that same The Mages of the Wheel. Most people, I don't know that most people know that it's called Mages of the Wheel. I think they just call it Reign and Ruin.
Reign and Ruin,
But yeah, so it's not actually, so technically there's 6 main books in the series, which reflects the magic system. And but I've written like a prequel kind of, and the one I'm working on now is kind of a side story. So there are 2 more main books to go, 5 and 6.
So you're taking a break from like the consecutive series to
kind of technically this one's like there's like, it's all these people coming together, and this one kind of backtracks a little and brings in a couple of characters that we've already met, but you don't know the history of. So it's kind of still there. It's just not part of the main plot storyline yet.
Yeah, it's a little cheaters side dish. Yeah.
So it's
you published the first 3 plus the prequel pretty quickly, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, like all in 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2020 was the first 3, and then and Wind and Wildfire came out right when my second kiddo came along, and then I crapped out for a couple of years.
I
mean, it was all the things you would expect. Utter burnout from trying to push out 3 books in a year, right? Now, to be fair, I did come into the publishing process with Reign and Ruin was pretty much done, and Storm and Shield, which is book number 2, was already in editing when I like announced the series. So, you know, technically I didn't write all of them in 2020. But I was very much hearing all the mindset at that time about rapid release and stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't really take into account that doesn't really work when you write more
Yeah.
epic 140, 150,000 word, you know? So I totally burned myself out. I just flamed out, and I had to take a couple years off, and then I just, finished the fourth one last year. So it was fast, and I do not recommend. No, 1 out of 10. Don't do it.
Yeah, I gotta say, I hate the fast release thing too. It's just way too much effort.
Exactly, and it's not that's just not the kind of books that I want to write. And I'm not talking like they're poor quality. It's just like those are rapid fire stories that are really addictive, and people want to binge that stuff. And I love
generally
those books
shorter too.
Yeah, and they're shorter. They're more like 90,000. And I like to read those books too, but I'm just way too wordy. I would use 10 words when I should use 1, and I'm not cut out for that. So
I feel that pain very specifically. There's no rapid releasing 200,000 words. It's not gonna happen.
No, it's not for us. It's not our style.
Somebody else's dream. I find it interesting that you had kind of like, we've been talking a few times to some people about like second book syndrome, where you publish and then, oh shit, I have to do that again, and you die a little. But it sounds like you deferred that feeling to the fourth one by doing the rapid release. Like, did you dodge second book syndrome? And then you're like,
I did somehow.
So great.
It's interesting because, like, Reign and Ruin, of course, took forever to write.
Of course.
And then this is where what fell apart for me was that I wrote my second book in like a month. It's the shortest book. It's the shortest, except maybe the prequel. It's the shortest of the two. It was the easiest for me to write because it's very much like the sassy, kick-ass, knife-wielding girl. And, I grew up on those. I liked that. It's not my favorite thing anymore, but it was a lot of banter. It was a faster pace, kind of more romantic centric book than Reign and Ruin was. And there wasn't a lot of heavy moving pieces for the bigger plot in that one. So it just like flew out, and I may or may not have been attempting to escape raising a child. It's like, I have to write this book, Dan. So you just take the baby,
kids,
and I'll be back in a little while.
Excellent strategy.
Yeah, it worked so well. But yeah, so no, book 2 was pretty easy. And then I made the mistake of being like, oh, I'm awesome. I can write these things in 30. I know what I'm doing now. I'm on it.
You know what I'm doing.
And so then I based my release schedule off how fast I wrote book 2, and no. That was not good.
Oh, no.
So I managed to push out the third book, and then but between that burnout and the baby and the moving and the COVID, there was no fourth book coming for a while.
Yeah. Do you get sort of
SPFBO. I didn't anticipate the stress of that. I truly thought I would be out of that thing in like the first couple of rounds. I was like, was not set up to go the distance on that one. So it was weird. Yep.
Yeah. Do you find you get a bit of a book hangover when you finish writing? Like each novel where you kind of, let's say, spiral a little bit? And so
I do any authors not do that? Like,
I don't know.
I haven't met any yet. But...
Right, well, I feel better then.
Yeah, because
as long as everyone's kind of,
And I don't think I'm going to. Every time I'm like, okay, this time I'm going to take like a little time off. I'm going to chill out. And, now here we are 6 months later, whatever. I don't have another book even close to being written. I'm like, well, shit.
and you're doing the writers will write a literal whole other book to avoid writing the book they don't want to write yet.
Yeah,
Thing.
My sister made that post on Twitter, and she's like, so many people. I didn't expect this many people to relate to that.
We were all up in her comments.
Yeah, it was very much the squirrel syndrome. I don't know. I will be honest though. Like, I had planned for this particular like side shoot because it has I really don't think you can go into the next book without knowing what's in this book. So technically it was planned, but also technically, maybe, theoretically, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the next 2 books. And maybe I need a little more time, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, we don't believe that. You've got it all planned. You're doing great.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I love it when I see a review that's like, you can just really tell that she has this all planned out. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome.
Glad
I feel that way, I guess. No, I am just flying by the seat of my pants over here.
At least you're doing the distraction book within the same world,
right?
Which is better than some of us in this room.
Attacking people.
Yeah, no, that was self-harm. And I accidentally also called you out. So,
oops. Yeah, totally accidental.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the story.
Wrote an entire trilogy trying to avoid writing, a book 3.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Twice,
I know.
right?
Twice.
Like, you've got, I think he did this twice. Like, there's 2 book 3s that he avoided over the stretch of a few years.
I feel like, though, as long as you come back to it eventually, it's all right. I know there's one thing that I've done right, and that is to know that if I were to step out of this series and try to write something else, I would never come back. So I can't I can't do shiny object, so I have to wait. So but I admire people like Fletch here that can keep that many stories in their head at once, because I cannot. There's room for one story at a time.
I'm not sure that I can. I mean, I have to I go back and I reread my own books, which is absolutely horrible. Like, it's the worst thing.
I know, right? Yeah,
like,
I know.
I wrote this crap.
I'm far enough in that I really should consider a reread of the things I wrote.
Oh no.
Somebody was like, could you please maybe have some artwork done of this particular like thing I've described in the books? I'm like, wow, I do not remember what that's supposed to look like. So I guess I'll have to reread my own stupid books.
Yeah. That's why you're working on this other one, because you don't have to reread in order to do this one if it's all
exactly. It's kind of like shiny object, but I can get away with it because it's in the same series. It's very
totally counts.
Yeah. So Rain and Ruin was your first published novel, correct?
It was, yeah.
It was. So was that the first sort of book you ever like wrote and finished, or do you have a
I am
novels?
very I sound like every other writer I've ever heard, which is I've been writing since I was a little kid. And I will say that I very consistently would hit like the 60 to 70% mark in some story and just wander off,
Oh, so, really?
And I think that's pretty typical. Yeah,
you got far. So there's like if I'm wandering away, it is not past the halfway point. It is at like 10 or 20.
Well, Krystle, maybe you'll understand this. I wandered away once I'd gotten the couple together, and then I was done. It was it. I didn't need to write anything else in the book.
Yeah, okay.
So, but But yeah, Rain and Ruin, the interesting thing is that I kind of poached a lot of ideas from myself. And so, like, things that I was going to maybe write after Rain and Ruin, I'm like, well, crap, I have used so many of my own ideas in this one book that now I have to come up with new stuff. I'm screwed. But yeah, Rain and Ruin was the first book. I had a draft of something else that I stole a lot from for Rain and Ruin, and it was kind of finished, like not really finished, but kind of finished. And
Were they
this one,
yet?
Well, no, I mean, I had gotten it all the way to the end, but it was like,
oh wow, okay, yeah,
it was kind of like, oh my god, I'm done with this. I don't want to write it anymore. The end, you know, it was like that kind of
that counts. That counts. Yeah. We're calling that. That's finished.
Not every book, though.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely, 100%. But yeah, Rain and Ruin was the first one that was like purposefully all the way, and then I don't even know, like, for a really my younger sister, she self-published early, like when it was still very not, people were just not into it, and she did a because she writes pretty niche stuff. Her her series that she self-published first is called The Song of the Summer King, and it's Griffin characters, so it's kind of along the lines of like Warrior Cats or
Wings of Fire, kind of.
Yes,
Wings of
exactly. Fire, and it's, you know, it's kind of middle grade to younger YA, and you know, kids, they love it. It's very much like Lion King, Tolkien-esque, all mixed together. But she kind of knew she was really going to struggle to do that trend, so she did a Kickstarter to fund a print run. This was a really long time ago. Like, wow, okay. Early
before all the cool kids were on Kickstarter. Like, she was like,
I should know. I'm a terrible sister. I do not remember when she published it. I can tell you she was writing it in like 2009-ish. So
oh wow, okay. That is Bengali.
Yeah, but she she did a Kickstarter that the science fiction and fantasy writers of America like highlighted for, this is how you do a Kickstarter as a book person. Wow, and she got that funded, and it's kind of been, you know, so she was a big advocate of it, and I was still very much I want to get traditionally published, and I don't know, at some point my first kid was like 18 months old, and I was just kind of thinking of the timeline of a trad deal. Yeah. And we were kind of in financial difficulties at the time, and you know, I was just like thinking of anything, and I decided that not only did I not want to deal with a trad publishing timeline, even if I got picked up, which, you know, you don't know.
You'd never know.
I had planned a 6-book series, and I knew how frequent it was that they just drop you. They don't, you know, and so that's really where I went with it. I was like, I'm just going to self-publish it and see how it does, you know? So that's how we got there.
So what sort of was your breaking point that pushed you over from sort of a, you know, mad scribblings at home for yourself and I'm going to publish this?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like that. I think a lot of parents, women, the transition into motherhood was difficult. I've always been like really super independent and very much like a loner, and
then you have this small human that
needs you all the time. Second. And I will not pretend that I was like emotionally healthy and well prepared to do that. Like, it was a shock. How much therapy I needed to be able to like deal with a child, because like nothing will trigger all of your problems the way a child will. They're magic that way. And but I was I was struggling with that transition of from autonomous human being to mother. And my husband was working, he was traveling back and forth a lot. Like I said, we were kind of in financial issue, and I had pretty specialized, like, if I wanted to go back into the workforce, because of, you know, I was in the Army before, and I was in Intel, and I was in special operations, and that really only translates to a couple of jobs, and that I was super not I really didn't want to have to do anything in DC or any of that stuff. And so I was like, well, the one thing that I can kind of do is write. And, and so I was just like, I'm just going to try it. I mean, and it did. It was like a switch. It was absolutely just that I'm done stalling on this. I'm done fiddling around. I want something that's mine, and then that's how it happened.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
I remember that feeling.
Yeah,
I did that after Ellie, the youngest, and I was like, I can't be mom bot anymore. I need something that's mine. And it just like, it turned on the obsession of like, okay, every waking moment, which, you know, there's a lot of waking moments with a young child, but also somehow like a lot less brain functioning.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of lets you be a little bit more daring somehow. It's like, whatever, I'm just gonna do this. It's stupid. I don't have time. I don't sleep, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And then you just survive with the knowledge that you have something.
Yeah, I think it just, you just need, it's almost like a rope to kind of pull yourself out of that last transition or last that fuzz that takes over your brain when you're raising little kids. What about you, Fletch? What was your turning point?
That's a good question. It never occurred to me to ask you, which is older, your first book or your daughter?
Get in trouble. So I wrote my first book while my wife was planning our honeymoon and wedding. She was doing all the planning, and I was like, I'm super busy writing this book, which, you know, no one's gonna buy.
Same vibe.
In fact, I took a draft with us to Mexico on our honeymoon.
Wow.
You know what she was getting into.
The first book is older than the kid, although the kid was 3 by the time it was actually published.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because of that timeline of publishing that Jen mentioned, where
but like was that was trad, right?
No, actually, my first kind of. The first was with a Canadian micropress. Beyond Redemption was my second book, the Harper Voyage.
Okay.
But like Jen, I'd
that, and I keep forgetting.
I'd hit 60,000 words and then just flame out, and I'd start something new and chase a new shiny, and I hit 60,000 words and flame out again.
Right.
And it was, for me, it was like I had this moment where I was like, "Fuck it, I am going to finish a book, and I don't give a shit how bad it is." And it was done. But I didn't care because it was finished.
That's how I got back into it. I'm a finisher. Like, I'm a serial finisher. I have a lot of trunked, finished, unrevised novels.
I'm impressed.
But then,
I think I've published every single thing I've actually finished.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, no. I would rather die. I would rather die than pull that old shit out. It was so bad. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's funny how different, I mean, like, writers are similar, but there's also just like so much difference in their process and how they get there, and so
and yet so much of it has a lot of overlap. I think we talked to P.L. Stewart last, and I think he's the first person that we talked to who said that, like, the novel that I published is the first novel that I finished. Oh, I guess Anna also said the same thing, if I'm remembering correctly. This is a pop quiz that I threw for myself, and I'm failing. But yeah, overall, it's that's not what we're seeing in talking to other people, which is kind of cool. Like, it's cool knowing how much we have in common, even in that wide span of differences.
We're all just weirdos.
Yeah. Some of us more than others, like the guy in Grayscale. Okay, well, I guess that sets us really well for that first chat. So we're gonna bow out. Thank you very much, Jen, for coming on with us. I really missed it.
It's fun to chat with you guys.
And we're gonna keep you around for another episode. But as far as the audience is concerned, that's it for us today. Thanks for coming, and
thanks for joining us.